pose it in terms of a philosophical point that people are the core, and not in a political sense.
Yeah, because we all think, I mean, public radio is like, we're all thinking like everyone thinks like we do, you know. Yeah. And it's not true, because there are people who listen to the Tea Party who just absolutely love bluegrass.
Right,
you know, and we're not, CPB says we can't microserve a political audience, and the NPR and all their journalism doesn't microserve, and we don't, and so, you know, there are 34 million people that listen to public radio in the U.S., but, you know, and those are the people who listen to us, but in building our programming, we listen to the entire 340 million people in the U.S. To pull our programming out of, so we listen to everybody, and then only 34 million people happen to listen to us, 1 out of 10, so really being careful about politics and what we say in the air is really important.
Well, our situation, we had a couple staff members that said we need to get on this issue right away. Our general manager said we need to take this to the Minneapolis schools lawyers. They said don't go anywhere near this. It didn't get hit the airwaves. So we will not be talking about it anywhere near our airwaves because of the connection with the Minneapolis schools.
Sure.
So we are.
And being publicly funded.
Yes, they said you've got too much other federal dollars connected to the school system. So we backed away from it as fast as we possibly.
That was an easy answer.
That was an easy answer, yeah. Our general manager said, no, you're not going.
Well,
a couple of station members, our employees said, oh no, we're not going. We want our license to stay with Minneapolis School.
But I like the idea of you know, we don't plan to include this in our pledge pitching at all. Just so you know, any messages from the station are about the programs. But we will be running this week an announcement just letting people know that the funding at the federal level is in danger and what they can do to support it, just because it would be very hard on a station such as ours. And a lot of people think about, especially right now, national public radio, but we rely on
I think CPB funding is 3% for NPR and of their funding, and for us it's 10%. It's a lot bigger chunk.
Right. It's kind of the smaller independent stations that are. But are there any more questions?
I I think it kind of fits in this discussion, and I wonder if things like those kind of issues maybe do stay with like a cart, you know?
Right.
Because I think for me, the thing that I've struggled with Pledge Drive is, my show's not very serious, so it's like throwing a glass of cold water when I suddenly say, oh, we need to keep the lights on, so I've kind of gone really, I keep getting further and further away from the logical reasons to pledge, and trying to make it more entertaining. Like the idea being, well, the pledge drive has to be entertaining, especially if you do a show that's just all entertainment. I mean, you can't suddenly just put something in. So a lot of us who do a show, a music show for one thing, but then depending on your tone, I mean, if you're someone who can talk about serious issues on your show, well, fine. But if you're just doing a show like, and I would imagine this lineup, it kind of falls into that. It's like,
these are Friday night programs.
Yeah, it's really difficult to just like plop in something really serious. So I think at least I have, just I'm not sure where it's heading. I mean, it's been working okay, but I find that I struggle with that. It's like, how do you make it just entertaining for people to listen, and then they pledge out of the fact that this is still entertaining,
Keep it that way.
If
you're getting a response, keep it that way.
Yeah.
It's about the show. It's about the show.
Yeah, it's about
It's
the
not
show.
about anything else.
I think that's exactly it, because that's the one thing if you only know one thing, and you do, about the listeners, it's that they're listening to your show at that moment, and you know nothing else. And that's what you want to focus on, because once you start getting off that, whether it's about a premium or if it's about politics, all of a sudden, maybe you hit someone, but maybe you alienated someone.
Well, I think there's two things you should be. I mean, if you want my advice, I'd be happy. My advice is that, talk about your show, because that's why people are tuning in. You're right on the mark right there. But also, during every one of your breaks, say something, whether it be 15 seconds worth or 30 seconds worth, about the purpose of KFAI in general. I mean, it's kind of like the Wonderful Life moment, Where else would you hear this kind of music unless it were here? Where else would people have radio programming and native voices? Where else would you hear the Minnesota 90-second thing? Where else would you have, I mean, you go to concert, you go to places I mean, you got like 3 or 4 concerts scheduled soon that you're co-sponsoring.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have a huge, I mean, the Wonderful Life analogy is great because you're in the Bailey building. Because here you are. And what I really love about anchor stations, and because this is, I mean, Minnesota Public Radio goes from Minnesota, Ontario to Iowa and Wisconsin. I mean, you've got the Avenue, down to St. Paul, Highland, and I mean, this is your coverage area. You know your listeners, you know them, and you talk to them, and they love you. We love you, and it's a wonderful relationship that you have that's on a small achievable level that you can talk about during this week, and really in between 15 and 30-second chunks, you should be talking about the mission and values of KFAI in general in each one of your pledge breaks.
So we're getting a little bit close to the noon stop time. I've got another question that's come up at a lot of pledge trainings at my time here at KFAI that I wanted to pitch to you guys. Is do you have any advice for volunteers who are anxious, asking for financial donations because they maybe have an idea that they believe that their audience maybe can't afford to pitch or pledge, excuse me, or they're worried about asking from a group that maybe isn't well off for money?
I give you, first off, make sure that you're giving yourself, what you give to the station, so you know what it feels like to give $30 a year, or $25 a year, or $50 a year, or $100 a year. Secondly, to realize that we all know people that, I thought about this when I saw that on the sheet. We all know people who give $200 a year to something. We all know people that give $500 a year to something, or $1,000 a year, or maybe even $10,000 a year to something. Most people who give that kind of money to churches or social organizations or other things they believe in don't stick up their hand or wear a big badge and say, I give money. And I mean, all of us give money to something. And so knowing that people give money for something they care for is really important, because people do give money to things that they care for. And the other thing that we know is that people pay for things they value. I'm in the $50 a month club here. This is my $50 a month and my cell phone. And I'm in the $150 a month Comcast club. I mean, if you get internet, if you get telephone, and if you get cable, you can't get it for under $150 a month from Comcast. So we pay for things we value. So people value KFAI. Therefore, people, $10 a month. That's only 1/5 of what I pay for this, and boy, this is a chain around my neck. And I'm really irritated at paying $150 a month to Comcast, and I'm happy to pay $10 a month to KFAI.
Well, I just was thinking that, exactly, just to pick up on that point, when I saw that question, that, people may say that, well, I don't have money, I'm broke, but they won't think twice about paying $4 for a Frappuccino. I've seen that. And so, there isn't, like, this kind of makes that point even more, the one that you made, that if people like something, they will pay for it, and they will find some money, unless they're, completely out of money. And that's not what we're talking about. Most people do have some disposable income. So I think I would couple this with going back to what we just talked about, which is, there's no need to be nervous when you're doing the pledge drive, no need to have fear, except for meeting those goals. But, because people are, already listening to you. They're listening. Whoever is out there listening likes you. Nobody out there who's hearing you is a person who doesn't already like you. And so they are your allies and your supporters, and so just if you keep that in mind, and it may be that even if they don't have any money, which is not really the case, people have some, they will be willing to put that in. So I think we do pay for things that we care about, even if it's an expensive cup of coffee. And yeah, it's totally possible that people who don't have money would still give, even if it's not at a high level.
And I think it's okay to say